Hello, good evening. Those glowing lights above me. Let me try to remove the distraction. Okay, a little better. Hey guys, welcome. Welcome back to the on again, off again, the tit for tat, the ping pong, the we're waiting, but wait, things did get worse. Yes, yes. Are we almost at war? Are we at war? Did anybody actually declare war? What's happening, right? And that is the question. That is the question actually for all of us, not just you watching perhaps from overseas, but it is also the question for those of us who are sitting perhaps in Jerusalem, perhaps 2 hours south of the action and 2 hours north of the previous action, which nobody remembers, except the families of the hostages, who, and also, of course, the Palestinians who are now saying, does anybody remember us and the issues going on here? Does anybody remember that 1 million are perhaps homeless right now? I mean, actually, I don't know the full numbers, but there were 1 million refugees at one point going from one place to another, flee to the south, flee back to the north, stay in the center, go to the beach. I don't know. It was insane. And right now, that's exactly what's happening here. Let's catch the headlines right now. This being the big one right here. Okay, two Army reserve units have been called up by Israel to the army, meaning like we're preparing for something more serious in the north. I have a funny thing about that being the translation into English. I'll tell you about that in a second. Russian roulette with Hezbollah rockets landing in northern Israel. Southern Lebanon, there's, I think, more than 500 people already dead in the Israeli attacks. And I think 500,000 already evacuated refugees. Something I have been hearing a lot, basically, that Iran is in no rush to get into a war and that this tit for tat might be going on for a while. Wow, wait till I get to that. Netanyahu is on his way. If you're in America, he's on his way to you right now. This is Gaza. There's still Israeli soldiers in Gaza. You don't hear of that these days because there's too much going on in the north, like actual, like war, not war. So anyway, these are the top headlines, and that's just the Israeli news. I mean, I wish I had time to look at the news coming out of Lebanon. I really do think that's important. And by the way, you could also do that yourself, is like really check out like what's happening in, just not just one side or the other, but see what like other people are saying, because I think it's very fascinating as well, just to know like what are people going through, what's the news being reported, what is their narrative and their perspective. It's usually completely opposite of what you're hearing. So anyway, today was yet another day here where in Israel you heard, we had from this morning, I think it was even before 7 a.m, that ground-to-ground missile, first so far used during this particular war that maybe you could say started October 8th between Hezbollah, but whatever, ground-to-ground missile shot from Lebanon into Israel, and it went to Tel Aviv. I want to tell you guys about the Tel Aviv rule. I'll get to that in a second. That's the Army Chief of Staff right there on the TV. Not that it's important that you see on the TV. Anyway, said something very interesting today. I'm going to find the exact quote because it cracks me up in English. Because I looked up the word. I saw the statement first in Hebrew and then I looked up the word. And it's just so funny. It was translated. Yes. Okay, here it is. I found it. Okay, so he was at an exercise. So his name is General Herzi Halevi, and he was in the north of Israel today at an exercise. And he said, "We are not stopping. The fighter jets have been striking all day, and we are preparing for the maneuver." So I was like, the maneuver? Like, what's the maneuver? Is that a new move or something? I don't know. Anyway, but is it the ground invasion? Is it this? So we're all sitting here wondering, like, does this escalate to a ground invasion, or does it stay the status quo that we've had since October 8th, which is that Hezbollah fires, Israel responds, back and forth, but Israel has expanded its big time expanded its attacks of Hezbollah in Lebanon, and accordingly Hezbollah then has expanded its reach into Israel. So whereas before you had Hezbollah attacking let's say into the northernmost communities, and occasionally you would hear one like it falling in the lower Galilee. Now it's like from Haifa all the way across the country is now within the range of regular rockets. And we're talking hundreds a day, like 200 a day when I say hundreds, but before it was dozens. So it definitely has escalated. Now, of course, this all started with the beepers, with the Trojan beepers that ended up in the hands of Hezbollah operatives all across Lebanon and some in Syria holding their beepers, because beepers are less trackable, apparently not, and their beepers exploded, and dozens were killed and thousands were injured. And I remember hearing an analyst say that if Israel doesn't take advantage of this opportunity, then what did you do? It's just like, yeah, you made a big show. It looks great, like intelligence wise, like, yeah, movies, Hollywood's got nothing on you. But if you actually don't take advantage of this, then you didn't really accomplish anything. And so sure enough, I guess this was already part of the plan. Israel's plan was to explode the beepers, then explode walkie-talkies the next day, and then carry out some major targeted assassinations, taking out some of the top commanders of potential ground forces and others. And then since then, honestly, it's not like we're not sure who did that strike. It's like Israel saying, yeah, we struck several, like you're getting the messages, like the Israel IDF is saying we struck dozens of or hundreds of, or since the beginning of the war, 1,500 targets. They're saying that launchers and weapon storage. Now they also release photos and videos of weapons that they say were in the houses of people living, civilian houses in southern Lebanon. Now, this is what Israel says. It's the same what they say about Hamas, that Hamas uses civilian places like schools and UN facilities and even churches and mosques, that they will use those places from which to launch their weapons, or even hide their weapons, store their weapons, whatever. And they said that's basically what they're saying is happening with Hezbollah. Now, at the same time, let me see if I have this article up, because fascinating things about the mood in Lebanon, because Hezbollah is a political party / militia / terrorist group recognized by most of the world as a terrorist group that is funded by Iran, supplied weapons by Iran, but they're in Lebanon. So in Lebanon, I read a little bit of the history. It's really fascinating. They've been there for dozens of years, and they have actually they've become a fixture. They became a fixture in the welfare system. They have charitable organizations. they also became a fixture in the political system, and I think they control 50% of the Lebanese parliament. And Lebanon is a very factional country. I don't know much about Lebanon. I mean, for sure, like I need to interview an expert on Lebanon, because for sure I'm not the expert, but from what I understand, it's very factional. There are, or sectarian. There's a lot of religions, like even among the Christians, which are a minority, there's probably 10 different denominations. And then among the Muslims, there's the Shia and the Sunni, and then there's also Druze. So it's just, there's a lot of political representation, and Hezbollah is part of that. And so the question is, like, how do Lebanese people feel about what Hezbollah is doing? Like, this is not a war between Israel and Lebanon, which Israel is always trying to make clear, like, we're not attacking the Lebanese or Lebanon, but we are attacking Hezbollah outposts. And so there are some people who are saying in Lebanon, like, okay, yeah, we're tired of you. Like, we want you out of here. So there's this one article I read today about that Christians in Lebanon might be divided, and that there are some of them who have been saying, like, you guys are uninvited. Why are you here? Why are you launching missiles from our land, meaning it's going to come back? The rockets that are going to come back are going to be on us. Now, I'm not saying that's all the Lebanese, and also, disclaimer, it's also that Lebanon, the Lebanese it doesn't mean that if they're against Hezbollah, that they're for Israel, okay? I'm not saying that at all. Like, Lebanon and Israel are enemy states. Could that be ameliorated in the future? Maybe it's a possibility. Maybe, I was hoping when they were doing the maritime border negotiations that perhaps they would come to some sort of miraculous, like, standoff, at least in their hostilities. So anyway, so the Lebanese are not necessarily pro-Israel, but the Lebanese are not going to war with Israel, but Hezbollah has. But at the same time, it's not really a war. It's just it's ping pong. It's you shoot a few, I should shoot a few. Now, that's not to diminish. I'm not saying that to diminish loss of life or refugees or even the seriousness of a rocket. I mean, many people have been killed in Lebanon up till now. I mean, just in the last couple of days. In Israel, miraculously, very few over the last 11 months. But that's because Israel's air defense system, that it actually shoots down most of the rockets, and then others that are going to land in open spaces, it knows not to shoot them down and waste a missile to do so. But if more Israelis had been killed, or any, let's say, then it would have raised the tensions for sure, and Israel would be obligated. And that's what happened on October 7th. I mean, it wasn't just rockets, it was also an invasion. Israelis were killed, Israelis were kidnapped. So, of course, Israel said, yeah, now we're going into Gaza, and that's it. And then it's a disproportionate loss of life because one side is better defended than the other. So, all right, let me get to some comments. Thank you for the shout outs from, I don't know where you're from, Lovella, but please let me know. And from Denmark, that's really cool. And Jacob Pursley. Jacob, I just listened to a teaching of yours the other day. That was awesome. Okay, I saw that Israel warned Lebanon that they would strike and told folks to leave. Yes. I don't know if the civilians took that seriously. I know they're taking it seriously now. And it looks like they took it seriously because there was footage coming out of Lebanon that the roads were impassable. Like, sorry to say, it looked like Artsakh when they were fleeing a year ago to get out of Artsakh through the Lachin corridor into Armenia. The roads were blocked. People were stuck for hours trying to get out. And I think there were about 500,000. So I think people did take it seriously. So like I said, Israel published photos that they said are of missiles being stored in houses. And yeah, so anyway, it's, I haven't heard the contra to that. So that's what I know so far. So that's that's a very interesting and thing where if that's the case, and by the way, Israel's hitting over 1,000 targets, like they're in the end of this one. I don't see an end in sight, and so it could be thousands of targets. Does that mean thousands of homes had missiles stored in them? And was it by force, or did they want to? Did they support it? I don't know the answers to these. I think we would need an expert on Lebanon to tell us that. Enrique says the only way this ends is diplomatically. Everything else is done to keep corrupt Bibi in office. Well, you know what? That is an opinion here in Israel. It is, I don't want to say majority, but it's pretty close to half the country thinks that the prime minister of Israel, Netanyahu, is actually continuing these strikes or continuing war in different places in order to stay in power, because as long as there's this instability and war, there can't really be elections, and that he will stay in power. Now that brings me to another thing, because the biggest block voice right now is the families of the hostages. Originally 250 hostages. Now that does include foreigners, most of whom have been released, maybe not all. Foreigners were also killed. There were foreign workers here. I'm not talking about dual Israeli citizens. I'm talking about foreign workers from Thailand, from India, from different countries in Africa. They were here, they were kidnapped and or killed. And so aside from them, the hostages, the families of the Israeli hostages have become a loud political voice. They protest almost every night, huge protests every Saturday night. They're out tonight. They are extremely upset that Netanyahu is going to the United Nations. There's a lot to be said about that. There's this, the convention in the United Nations right now, all of the world leaders, the president of Iran is there smiling, and everybody's being so, civil. And meanwhile, there are people being held illegally in jail and persecuted and being executed on a daily basis, including American citizens, and America has welcomed him on America's soil. So there's already an issue with that. But as far as the Israelis, they're saying, okay, many Israelis are saying, yes, this is the time that our prime minister should go to the UN and he should represent our voice and our opinion there. But the hostage families are saying, what about us? At least take us. At least let us be the face of Israel to say to the entire world that we just had 6 of our hostages executed, including an American citizen, executed by Hamas, and yet nobody's doing anything. In fact, there's not even talk now of a deal of a ceasefire. Now all the talk, speaking of diplomatically, is about the north. How do you end the hostilities between Hezbollah, why did they get involved anyway? Why did they get involved, actually? Because it was between Hamas and Israel, but Hezbollah got involved, and they, since October 8th, and then they didn't stop. So why, talk about a diplomatic solution. There isn't even a diplomatic solution 11 months later, actually 355 days later, there's not even yet a diplomatic solution in the south, in between Hamas and Israel. I mean, Hamas, the Palestinians, I don't know, is Hamas actually, good questions. They're in the Israeli media, they're actually saying in the last couple of days, is Sinwar alive? Yahya Sinwar, who is the head of Hamas in Gaza, but also after Ismail Haniyeh was assassinated, killed in Tehran, He became like the de facto leader, but he hasn't been heard from in days. So we don't even know if he's alive. Okay. There's another question here. Is there a good map of where the strikes are? Do we know what sectarian areas these may be? I heard no Armenian communities were targeted, for example. Oh, that's so interesting. Okay. So I will say up front, because I don't know about Lebanon and I don't know the geographic areas, I don't know, but I'm going to look for a map. I have seen maps, but honestly, there's so much stuff coming in that I don't know if I'm going to find the map. Okay, but I don't know if I'm going to find the maps that I saw. I'll tell you what I do know. It's not looking good. I'm going to find it. I'll tell you what I know is that they're hitting Beirut, which is not, that's Hezbollah is known to control the south of Lebanon, like up like the Litani River is sort of a border. And if I were well, one day I should practice how to open a map so we could look at it together. I'm not going to try to do that now, but all right. So Litani River and south, Hezbollah mostly, and because I think a lot of people have fled, and then Beirut is everybody. That includes all the different groups and religions and political groups and people and communities in general are in Beirut. It's the capital. And Israel's targeting Beirut, but they're hitting very precisely like into the window of the third floor of a 20-floor building or whatever. Like they've done crazy things like that a couple of times. And so they're targeting Beirut. But I heard as far as Sidon and, even like 60 miles north or stuff like that. So it looks like I mean, if you can say that if you can verify Israel strikes, you have to look at it and say they must have some kind of insane intelligence that is showing them where the targets are and when. Because the strike that happened on Friday, after the beepers and after the walkie-talkies, they hit several commanders from the Radwan elite units, a unit of Hezbollah. They hit them in one room. Now, I think terrorism 101, like if you know how to not use a smartphone and to use a beeper instead, you should also know to not all gather in the same place. And several of them were killed. And this is stuff that's also confirmed by Hezbollah. Hezbollah releases every day, they release pictures of all of their dead. So this was all also confirmed by them. It's not just also Israel claiming that they killed them. It's Hezbollah claiming that they were martyred. So, hold on a sec. So anyway, my question is, and I think a lot of people are asking, is this all-out war? Neither country, well, again, it's not a country. It's Hezbollah, which is like a militia, but not a militia in a country. Okay, so neither entity has declared war. But now Israel has called up 2 reserve units. And they have been, I said this last week, I saw them when I drove up north last week, and this was before it all broke out. I saw military vehicles going with, like, I saw flatbeds with tanks, and I saw other things. I don't know if they were porta potties or mobile bomb shelters. I have no idea. Moving up north, a lot of military movement. And you felt the emptiness also of the roads. So there was like an atmosphere of like things are gonna happen up north, but and then it all broke out on Sunday. But this has been going on for 11 months, and with Hamas. So if that can be a lesson to us, that a war could go on for that long, and even though it's a extremely high number of casualties, I know a lot of people on the Israeli side want to question the numbers. There's 40 plus thousand in Gaza, and they question the numbers. But even if it's half, it's a lot, because we're talking about 2 million people. That's a large. It's a large percentage of the population of Gaza, and you can't say how many were Hamas. Maybe even if half were Hamas, whatever. It's still this has been going on a long time. There is still no solution to how to get in humanitarian aid, and whether or not is Israel blocking the humanitarian aid, or which is what the Palestinians say, or is Hamas taking over the humanitarian aid trucks as they go in, which is what Israel is saying. So when you're talking about this little small swath of land that is not an independent country, and that can even fight back. It's not militarized except for the terror group, and everything. So this is going on for 11 months. So imagine if you drag in a country, if you drag in Lebanon. And so far, Lebanon itself has not gotten involved, the Lebanese army. But the fact that I'm not minimizing it. I'm saying it's small in terms of the numbers, but the fact that this smaller entity can go on this smaller terror group, Hamas, I think, had 20,000 versus Hezbollah's 50,000. It's not as well armed. It has very crude weapons, and tunnels, massive amounts of tunnels, true, but they are definitely not as advanced as Hezbollah. Also, Hezbollah had a direct pipeline to Iran through Syria. So they, the sky was the limit in what they could store and receive, and even getting the IRCG to come fly in and be with them, and give them even moral support, backup, and whatever. So whatever is going on in Lebanon is much bigger than what is going on there. So if you look at the fact that 11 months can go on with no resolution, what is the question with northern Israel and southern Lebanon? And I don't know. And I actually am sitting here 355 days later. And you know how I know that? Because I drive by every day the tent that the hostage families have set up outside the prime minister's official house in Jerusalem. And every day they change the number. And there's a protest tent, and they are there all the time. So the number changes every day. Actually, they probably have it on the news too. And there's some rockets coming in right now, I see on the screen. But I am concerned that this can go on for another 11 months, another 12 months. And if you're talking about you can't resolve it with the small time numbers, how are you going to resolve it with the big time numbers? And if it gets worse, if it escalates at all with Hezbollah, then what happens with Syria? Then what happens with Iran? And who gets involved, and who comes through eventually? So these are the questions we have. Don't have the answers. Oh, hold on a second. Somebody's at the door. I think that's a child. Hello. Welcome back. Hi, I'm on a live. You walk there. You're on. You want to take over? You want to glare at everybody? My God. Maybe we should weaponize her death stare. Very good. Seriously. She did a front flip. There was just sirens in Eilat. So so that does remind me of another aspect, is that right now we're dealing singly with, Israel-Hamas and then Israel-Hezbollah. Meanwhile, I said this a couple days ago, and then there was nothing since. Several drones and missiles from militias in Iraq, Iranian militias in Iraq. And now if there's a siren in Eilat, it says, drone or something, Clay Tice, coming in from, so that could be from the Houthis, who are in Yemen. So interestingly enough, from the beginning, we've been saying, could be this many fronts, that many fronts. Now we're not even hearing about the West Bank, which was another front a month ago, which is now not a front. Still 101 hostages. Did I finish saying that the families of the hostages are saying, why are we not going to New York? Like, can we not make our case there now? We should be able to make our case. We got to get these, it's been almost a year, get them out. What's going on? So a lot of non-resolution. Enrique, you're saying diplomatically, so far, nothing, no, you're not taking the money. I'm getting robbed. So yeah, there looks like no solution on the horizon. I have to go get my money back. So I'm going to have to end this soon. Actually, best to end once the kids start roaming, because as long as we can stay here in Jerusalem, like nothing's happening, which is so ridiculous. I mean, I'm sorry, but like we're not even 2 hours from either side, and yet everything continues as normal here, which is bizarrely like dissonant, like it's cognitive dissonance kind of a thing. But we should probably maybe leave the war talk for another time. Oh, but Ohan just got on. Ohan, yay! As long as this government will survive, the enemy will survive. Well, you speak the mind of many Israelis. Actually, it's a lot of Israelis really feel this way. Now, I know it's funny because like in speaking with like the Christian Zionists who like love Netanyahu, and then for them to hear that like a lot of Israelis don't love Netanyahu at all and they want him out, and not that there's anybody really like lining up to replace him, like you could say like, oh yeah, we need this person instead. No, there's nothing like that. But yeah, so a lot of people think that he won't make a deal because a deal would mean the end of the war, and the end of the war would mean that there would be a legitimate call for elections, and then elections would mean he would be removed. But honestly, like I don't see anybody else forming a government, so maybe I don't know that that's his. I honestly don't know that that's his concern, because I don't see that he necessarily be booted. I think he could probably build a coalition again. It doesn't matter if he gets the most votes. It only matters if he can build a coalition. And with most of Israel's right, like most of the Israeli parties are right wing, and he could probably build another coalition again. So I don't know. I mean, but honestly, like it's a very torn, divided country, and sometimes the internal politics are just as crazy as the external. Mimi says hi to you, and she also said to give me my 20 shekels back. Mimi. She just says hi. She's not on the screen. See? Hi, Raya. So, all right. Do you guys want to watch Monk?
Yeah.
Okay, go get ready. Go get ready for bed.
My money.
All right, go get ready for bed. So, no, seriously, go. All right, so to wrap it up, no idea what the only way I know what the morning will bring is whether or not I see how many rockets happened overnight. Seriously, that's just been the way it is every single time. And I have no idea. We have no idea where this is going. Israel says prepare for the maneuver. What's the maneuver? It sounds like a new physical therapy technique or something. And yet they've called up reserves, and Iran has a lot of patience. If Iran's truly behind what Hezbollah is doing, then it could just be really long, and which kind of is sad, because it means that you guys probably won't be able to, or won't want to, or there won't be enough flights coming to Israel to visit, and hard for us to get out as well. So anyway, in addition to other things. But okay, so anyway, that's it for now. Thank you for tuning in. I will do this as events warrant and as children scatter. So, and now we're ready for Monk. We go from missiles to Monk just like that. We're gonna go watch Monk. Anybody watch Monk? Do you guys like Monk? Do you remember that show? I didn't watch it when it was actual, but we're binge watching it on Netflix now. So anyway, so we're gonna go do that now. And say goodnight to everybody. All right.